Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole podcast with Omar and Gwen, a podcast where we talk about the mystical, the supernatural, or anything else that the rabbit hole leads us. In today's episode, we are covering working with angels and demons and what we know. So sit back and enjoy.
Hi everyone. Today it's August what, 29? It's late August.
Yeah, it's the 28th.
When we're recording this, but welcome everyone. Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. I don't know if you guys know this, but we're now on Spotify. I'm gonna keep bringing it up because listen, not everyone likes a visual, but also if you do like visuals,
I
want to see your happy faces. Right. Here we are. This is what we look like. Today we wanted to talk about angels and demons, or just anything really, just that it really encompasses angels and demons, period. Yeah. And since we segued into numbers, what do you, when you just said that you really connect with like 420 or your birthday, but like what's a definite repeating number that always sort of just catches your attention, that you're like, oh, this one follows me all the time? I know you answered that, but like, what's for you personally?
I always think the 111 number follows me around a lot. And for the last couple of weeks, sometimes people look at this in two different ways, whether it's like a message of like a warning, or it really is just like a spirit message of like, hey, you're supported. 911 has been coming up the last several times. So, but the most frequent from when I've gotten things, or when I'm paying attention for numbers, it's typically like 111 and 444. Like after it's like 420, and then 444 is like the the most common. But those are the ones I always pay attention to. So
I think it's fascinating that like in the most recent, I believe maybe past 5 years, I think that we like culturally, like in pop culture, or just even like socially through the internet or on Instagram or Twitter or something, I find that a lot of people are paying more attention to like angel numbers. And a lot of people ask me like, well, what does that mean? And first of all, I tell them this is what it means, but also Google it, because sometimes 444 may not mean the same thing to me as it might mean to you, because again, like I know that numbers are sort of like a mathematical language of the universe, but like not every number is going to speak to you the same way it speaks to me. And I think that it's really cool that we're like stepping into that like time of like, I guess, consciousness where we're all paying attention to like repeating numbers, because I would get so excited when I would see like a number and I would like, oh my God. And everyone's like, what? Like, we've seen that all the time. And like, I'm like, what, aren't you paying attention? And I find that nowadays, people that I once spoke to and got really excited to talk about these angel numbers are now like getting on that bandwagon of like, oh my God, I'm seeing it everywhere. And I think that that's one, really amazing, but like what a great time to be living in, of mutual sort of awakening and realizing what these numbers mean and how they can communicate to us just using numbers. But I don't know, I know a lot about, I would like to believe I know a lot about angels, but then I don't.
Well, I mean, they're very mystical. I guess there's probably a better term on what to call them. We would like to have a grasp of an understanding of them, or how to perceive. And I will honestly say, the more I learn, the more that I feel like I really truly didn't understand, because there's always something that comes up. It's almost like a sense of define like a higher power, what it is for you or who it is for you. And there's so many things you can put, like adjectives or any type of word or explanation to describe that higher being. But are you really grasping the full picture, to get it down to a T? And I always learn something new with different ones when I'm working with them. And to kind of like end like with the topic with like the numbers, with you saying that it's such an interesting time and like people are awakening and so they're paying attention to these signs. I feel like lately for myself too, personally for me, I'm working with them, and when I get stuck in a problem, I always feel like, oh my goodness, like the world's on fire or something. It's like this big deal. And I forget that if I'm asking for a sign, it's probably right in front of me where if it's in a number. And I forget to pay attention because I'm waiting for a burning bush moment, And I know I'm not going to get that unless I'm just paying attention. And so I thoroughly like seeing the numbers when they show up, when they do, and remembering that I'm not alone. And it does it for me, in my personal opinion, when I see those numbers, it's there to let me know that I'm not alone and I'm being supported, but I don't even have to know exactly what that message is. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm there, and it should make me feel like, okay, I am supported. That's enough. Not getting like down to the T and trying to like put all the formulas and get inserts here and, figuring it out exactly. But
because sometimes it can be so simple as to confirmation, but I think that where a lot of us get really confused as to these signs is that we dissect them a little bit too much when it's really just so simple. Like, listen, I just came to you and that's good enough. But I feel like we as humans like to go into the why and then figure out like, okay, well, if I saw this number this day and then this day, this meant that, and then I saw this, and then it becomes like this big mathematical problem that you're like, it's sort of like the way I see it, like, you remember the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas and how like Jack Skellington was trying to figure out what the meaning of Christmas was, and it's just like, it's just simple. It's just this feeling. And he was like, what is this feeling? I'm trying to figure it out. And I mean, we find out in the end of the film that he still didn't quite understand what it meant, but it's just so simple. It's not for you to figure out. Like they're working on it, or whatever, sign that's trying to send you. They're working on whatever, trying to make you notice, which is the most important. And knowing that you need to like lessen the grip on the reins of your horse, because if you don't, then I mean, I can't say they're not funny either. They like to, oh, you're gonna keep on looking for these signs, all right, you'll find them, but they're not gonna mean anything.
Yeah, and I would prefer the numbers than more so things that are just in my face, because when it's something that's in my face and I did not expect it, it's more like, oh, why did y'all do that? And it's like, didn't you ask for this? We've been trying to get a hold of you for some time and you're not paying attention. So we figured we'd do it a different way and just shake you just a smidge. And, yeah. But no, I like working with them. Sometimes, depending on certain spiritual beliefs, some magical practitioners will work with them, some won't. And the reason being because the way we have perceived angels, and I think that's how you were trying to kind of get up to this point. Sometimes when we think of an angel, we think of this very nice looking, very, I don't know, just very clean, pure wings, white, bright lights, soft, very like,
domicile almost.
Yes, yes. And for me, that hasn't really been the experience. They can be super scary. But I like working with them and that type of power that they do have, because they really are willing to help. They are mighty and powerful. They are really good as far as protection measures. And they do help with a sense of magically, with whatever workings that you're doing also, with one of them that I do particularly work with. And I know Archangel Michael has a lot of popularity because a lot of people turn to him as being the defender for them in protection, health. What else is there? I mean, just clearing the pathways with his sword and fiery energy. And people have a thing of how they perceive him, and the way that I know him, he is very straight to the point, very much likes things a certain way. And yeah, so he can act like a diva. He can.
Very King of Swords, if you really think about it.
Yes. Yes. And when I work with him, I do just feel a lot of heat is what I feel with him. Metatron is another one that I like working with him, but not a whole lot. Really, when I'm kind of channeling with him, it's to understand him more. And one of the biggest lessons that when I've gotten in meditation and kind of working with him has been, when I understand him, he's so larger than life. But for me to keep an open mind as to certain things, that things may seem as they appear to you now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. So I have to be open-minded and teachable on things, and just be open to the idea. You know, it's not exact, but really more so just kind of be like at the very temperance. You see what's going on, but still go with that infinite flow of things of just how that they are. And it is what it is, you know, and be willing to, even though you understand it right now, know that it will change, and you just roll along with it and be open to the idea that this person could possibly be right. So there's no either right or wrong. And so that's what I've been struggling with a lot lately on spiritual belief, because it's like finding the acceptance piece. We're all just like, okay, this is acceptance. This acceptance, is it very clean? No, sometimes it's just very ugly in a spiritual process to kind of come to. So and Raziel is another one that I've worked with. He actually helps a lot of magical practitioners, as far as maybe you don't know if you're getting maybe your petitions aren't right, but if you're speaking from the heart, you have the intention, he can help you get the point across to where it's almost like your petition was like seamless. So he is a good one to work with magically if you're putting petitions out and being like the magical manifester on certain things. So I like working with him too.
I don't think I've worked. I don't know. I don't feel like I don't feel like I have specifically, because I know there's so many archangels, and I know that I was having a conversation with my boyfriend, and he knew the different kinds of angels that are out there. There's cherubim, there's seraphim, there's, I don't know the other ones, but there's sort of like a hierarchy of angels. And I was unaware. I mean, I knew that like angels are perceived in like art throughout history, as being really beautiful and just like white and just angelic and just very, you know, like sort of like a olive branch in a human. But what I was unaware of up until, I don't know, maybe the past like 2 years was that like, oh no, they're very scary.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone tells you that they work with angels, it is not like, oh, they're just, readers that are very nice, they're light workers. I'm like, you don't need to do that. Don't make that comparison, because if anything, if you look up a picture of how they are really like, how they are being described, they're really scary.
Mm-hmm.
And nonetheless, like, I know of Archangel Michael, and I know of Uriel, I know of
Mm-hmm.
Raziel. Um, it wasn't until like I met you that I knew who Metatron was.
Mm.
And the way that I perceive Archangel Michael is that he's very much like the truth. And I know that if you're trying to do a petition, you're supposed to do it north
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
something, because
Mm-hmm.
I know that different angels correspond to different points.
Points of that, yeah. I was going to tell you, or even anyone who's listening. So, not that this is an in-depth with the books, but the Gallery of Magic books, Damon Brand, I do highly recommend his work. And also, this is like when I started a little over a year ago and getting into the books and diving in with the magic. And so Damon Brand has a book. It's called The 72 Angels of Magic, the instant access to the angels of power. Then I also have one that is The Angels of Wrath, and I need to figure out who wrote that one. But I mean, there's many of them. And then they also have the, what is it? The Demons of Magic. Angels of Wrath, that one's written by Gordon Winterfield. Yeah, Winterfield. And the other, if I can get back to this, is, where is it? And Gordon Winterfield is the other one for the Demons of Magic. So again, not all of them are going to go into the history, but they do go back into ancient text and deciphering like the old Hebrew language. And they have sigils in this book. It's very easy to follow along, and it's really just you having that willingness to use it. But they do use the protection measures as far as calling on those archangels in the Demons of Magic book. And the demon sigil is in the middle, and the ring around it, it's almost like they're chained too. The demons are basically being the angels are being the bouncers for that specific demon. That's the best I can describe it. So I do like that protective measure of meditation and calling on those archangels where they are pointed to the different directions of north, south, east, west, and using that as protection for me. Like if I'm really diving into some sort of work, and depending on what I'm working on, not all the time, but also as a protection measure. And the Angels of Wrath book, I highly recommend that one also. But again, use that one wisely. But I like it. I don't know if I guess we could talk about like the angels of the week. And then before we move on to demons, I guess.
Listen, I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid. I'm very open. I feel like you are of the expertise on like informatively on like all of these different stuff. Cause I mean, again, like your spirit guide is also a cherubim.
Yeah, George is a cherub, and again, the whole thing that I've learned is the things that I haven't understood before. George has had a human life before, And it's almost, to me, it felt like that City of Angels moment with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan kind of thing. Not with me personally, but I mean, we'll talk about that a different day. But there is that sense of familiarity. And when I tried to get to know him or dive deeper, there's still like that sense of mystery of like, I know the answer, but I don't think you're ready. And I'm just going to hold that off as a secret. There have been times where I've guessed things or gotten like like almost like a clear message. It was one of my friends, she found something online and it was kind of, I deemed it as badge of honor. And it was like this pink net that you basically create in your mind, and it's with gold. And you extend it as a gift to the entity that you're working with. And I think at that point she was using one of the jinn or djinn, which is Natika, because we were using that for rituals and wanting to do something nice for that entity. And sometimes people associate the jinn or djinn as either angels or demons, depending on what they are, because the translations of who or of what they would do, because they kind of set in a they kind of have like this control over like certain domain of what they watch after or look after. And it's kind of like if you dig deeper, you kind of find some similarities in certain things. Why are you making that face?
So I'm just sorry, I'm learning something new right now, and I'm like, really?
I mean,
Because
yeah. Go ahead.
Because I've known the jinn to be like, I mean, I've heard other people talk about them in a very negative light, that they're very like scary and you shouldn't ask like them for things. But like I mean, I blew my mind when you said that like there's sort of like angels and demons, because there's you know, you don't know. It's not so simple like in Aladdin, where it's like this, good benevolent like thing. It's also, they might appear to you as good, but in reality they're here to take something.
Yeah. And so how we started the conversation, think about it. We're talking about angels and our depiction of what they look like. And there are people who think that they are super scary looking, So we were talking about the Fae a couple episodes ago, and it's the same thing, where people could look at the Fae as either angels or demons, depending on how they look. So I do find it interesting how you have all these cultures and different backgrounds and their interpretations, and it's almost like the things that we truly don't understand can also be like one and the same, which is what, again, Metatron tries to teach or what I've always seemed to remember, specifically like when I first had like that interaction and trying to like work with him and doing all that. Also, for them being certain entities, I've gotten that question before about are they male or female? It's non-binary. They are very much they have both, just like we do, divine masculine, divine feminine, and they're like, it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
And if you notice, even in the tarot, like whenever you see like a depiction of an angel on a card, there's always an infinity symbol. And I perceive that as sort of like it's infinite and it's ever changing, but relatively still the same. I mean, when we think of like Mercury is it's defined as not having either like finite male or female genitalia, and they're very Mercury, Hermes, very gender neutral, not leaning on either side, but remaining in neutrality, which when I think of Mercury and I think of Hermes, I think of like, oh, okay, messenger of the gods. So like it can go from the underworld or it could go towards the heavens, in the depiction in the Greek mythology. And then also what I know from from that. I don't know where I'm going that from this, but like, yeah, no, very that. Like, I get it. Like, I don't see them as being very like. I mean, I don't know. We've also said that like Michael, Archangel Michael's kind of a diva. Who's to say Michael is neither feminine or masculine? It's
Hmm.
just, and at the same time,
This
when we're
is.
talking about like how they're being depicted, you can't, but how they're accurately being depicted. Tell me something. Anyone that's listening right now, go look up accurate depiction of an angel and tell me if you get male or female from that picture.
Yeah, yeah. And because the names are so interchangeable, I had a friend, and this was another angel that I've worked with too, as far as like creative side, is Ariel. So Ariel, Ariel. And you think Ariel from The Little Mermaid. No.
Not me
And
though.
not you. Uriel. Ariel is the other. And I was explaining to my friend that I deem her as a she. I don't know why, but that just feels right to me, for me to understand. But again, it doesn't really matter. And they are over creativity, nature, and also when it comes to animals, very like the nurture, caregiving. And they also work with one of the other angels, I can't remember, but it's like they kind of go hand in hand, in overseeing things. And so when I was telling them about it, and Ariel is, they can depict it as lion of God or lioness of God. So it's up to your choosing. And she had like a really cool like thing that was going in the measurements of certain instances going into that week, and like a cat just showing up, and like the way her work, what she does in her creative side, I was like, definitely that entity's been with you. So yeah. So it's been really cool to see. And how they play like that, just being like, could it be, like Chandler Bing, could it be any more clear?
I mean, I know I get confirmations from, I think, isn't Raziel that works with the rainbows?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So anytime that you see a rainbow, whether in the sky or like when it hits like a certain light, that's showing that he's entered the room. Metatron, and I think that's when it comes down to like spectrum of colors, we look at the rainbow, right? And it's very pretty, it's very pragmatic, it's got, all these different sets of colors. And so it's super beautiful to us. When we associate with angels, like if they were going to show us that magnitude of like color, it's going to be bright where you're going to need like at least 10 pairs of sunglasses. It's very intense because when they show up, they show up. And like I associate Metatron with, it's almost like rainbow colors, but it goes into very like bright, 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 hot pink to like almost purple. And it's very intense, very intense. And yeah, like that's as far. And Archangel Michael, I think, I guess because he kind of goes with the sense of what is it like with that fiery energy. I always see red. I always see red with him.
Really?
There have been other specks of like colors, but predominantly red for me. I don't know why. But
For
I think
me,
it's because it's the heat from like flames. I also like see flames a lot. Like he's you have to think about like Battleground Zero.
mhm.
For me, I always see him just fighting off wars all the time. He's always busy, and he's very much just like he's always on alert all the time, just in a war zone.
Mhm.
So
I like to see him as blue just because he deals with communication and the truth.
mhm.
And since I think of like, Ace of Swords, just very like straight to the point, like what is it this? And that's when I said earlier, he reminds me of like the King of Swords, because like in the King of Swords in the traditional Rider Waite deck, he's not looking forward like the Queen of Swords. He's looking directly at you. So his eyes, when you're looking at that card, straight at your into your soul. And that's when I feel like I'm sort of receiving a truth that I wasn't prepared for. It's right in front of me. And since I think of like the color blue, I think of like, like the throat chakra. And for me, it's like, did you want to be duped? Did you want to continue living a fantasy, or did you want to hear the truth? You wanted the truth,
Right?
Whether it was delivered in the way that you wanted it or not. And it's very straightforward. That's how I perceive him. But when I see Raziel around, especially when I give readings, whenever I see like a rainbow or like a prism of a light, I'm like, oh, he's here. I know you're here. I was having a breakdown last week where I was like pulling out cards. I'm like, I need an answer. And like I saw like a rainbow on like the floor of my kitchen, and I got increasingly closer to me. And it was a confirmation for me of stop with the tarot. Stop asking questions, because I kept asking in a scurry of like, okay, I need to know. This isn't making sense. Shuffle again. Another card, and it wasn't making sense for me. So when I saw the rainbow getting increasingly closer to me, I was like, okay, this is just telling me like, put it down, and you're not going to get the answer you're looking for because your mind is scrambled, and you're not clearly seeing that like we're taking care of it. You asked for our help, so why are you scurrying?
And two things. The throat chakra, yes, and I agree with you with like the color blue. One of the stones that has been associated with Archangel Michael is the Sodalite. So you think of like that gray and blue, and he does like that. He likes gold also. And I'm gold, but yeah, he does have that also. So I guess it really like depends, but when he's feeling a certain way, and however he comes through.
And when a flame is hot, blue is the hottest.
Blue is the hottest color. Blue is the hottest color, especially when it comes to flame work. Yeah. What was the other thing? I forgot myself. This has just been happening too much.
Did you want to segue into demons?
We can. I've worked with Furcus, and Stolas has been coming up a lot lately. That I haven't personally worked with Stolas, but it seems like he's been getting a lot of, from what I've been following, is like he's almost kind of getting some sort of popularity lately for magical workings. And there are several other ones that I can't remember. I have to flip through the book to remember, but the Demons of Magic book, you have to understand, this was the other point with the angels too. So how they've been written, we understand that there are fallen angels. So when they're fallen angels, we think of them as something that's unholy, so we look at them as demonic. However, the demons, they have a purpose also. Both angels and demons love going to work. They all have a purpose. And so that goes back to the define good or bad and what your intent is. Furcus, I like working with him because he is also a teacher. He does teach as far as types of divination, magic, and also I think he was like a teacher with herbs as well. And but yeah, there's so many in the book that they just have this specific purpose. It's not all for the purpose of doing harm to others, but to teach you something. Sometimes it is for your benefit. Like there are demons that they can help you with your powers of maybe even tapping into somebody's mind. Again, maybe it could be psychic attack or certain things. Also, maybe kind of gaining like the upper hand, maybe not so much as far as like bending the will of other people, but bending the circumstances. They can do that. They can kind of manipulate the times and change for things to work out in your favor. And sometimes there are demons that again, so they have these properties where they can help and they can also harm as well. And you have to look at angels as the same thing. If they are there for your highest good and you're like, hey, I'm using discernment here and this is right and just, and this is where I feel like it needs to be done, they can use the discernment. Both don't really care either way. They're going to line it up as far as what should be done. You just have to be open to the idea of how they work with things to make it happen, you know? And as human beings, we're not patient enough to
see it through
on our time frame and being like, that's not how I thought it was going to happen. Well, wait a minute, give it some time. And the way you thought that it was going to pan out, it's going to pan out a different way, but it will happen. You know, that kind of thing. So I like working with both of them. And they, again, the way that our perception of how we see angels and demons, I mean, there could be like an angel with like 8 eyes on their face, you know, I mean, it's very like alien-like to me. And that could be the same going for the demons. I had one of the, Furcus being one of them, he kind of, if he was in human form, he'd remind me of like a Harley Davidson like biker with like a pot belly. And the mix of like when the old school Power Rangers, it was like the big like blue puffy guy, you know, that was like the side henchman. And so when I got like this visual, and it's a long beard. And so when I'm looking, I was telling a friend this, when I looked at the picture, I was like, there's the belly, and the hog is him riding a horse. Like, I'm saying hog like a Harley, but like he's riding a horse. And yeah, and Stolas, there is the owl, which I think the popularity is right now, I think it's like an anime. That's where it's coming from, is there's a show, I can't remember which one it is, but they're using Stolas as a demon, and it has like that owl face of the character. And so that is how Stolas is presented. Some of them have animal features where one of them is the head of a lion and it's like a man body, and one of them is actually a horse. I kind of look at it as like a very mutant horse, but it's a horse. And so again, it's just how you perceive it. Thank you for watching and listening to Down the Rabbit Hole podcast with Omar and Gwen. This concludes today's episode. Come in next time for part 2, and we'll carry on the conversation. Remember that we're on Spotify. Please be one of our subscribers. We're hoping in support of getting sponsorship. So until next time, see you soon, Alice.